Picture frames are one of those cool projects that you can really get creative with, or you can be really simple with. Both of these frames were made from a single 8-foot 2x4. This one is going into a little boy's room, so it's a little bit more traditional looking. And I just used a ogee bit to go all the way around both edges, inside and outside, and I also mitered the corners. This other one is a little bit more contemporary. It's going into a little girl's room, and for the frame construction, I used a halflap joint because it was going to be painted. Very strong joint, and I made a very high reveal all the way around the back side. But to make these things, they are very simple, very easy to do. Alright, so the first step in getting these things mounted is obviously I need some type of backing material. And I just went through a scrap bin and found some 1/2-inch plywood and cut it so there's about a 1-inch overhang over the pattern for both pieces. And I'm not going to attach these. I'm going to wait until the very last step before I attach these to the backing material. I've taken a single 2x4 and cut it down into 8 pieces, which will give me 4 sides per frame. Now, most of this 2x4 was pretty crappy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip it to 2 inches this way and about 1 1/8 this way. That way I can cut off all the bad spots. One of the frames is going to be a little bit more traditional and one's going to be a little bit more contemporary. Now for the one that's going to be a little bit more traditional, I'm just going to use an ogee bit on both sides of the frame, and then I'm going to miter the corners. The bottom inside edge of all these frame pieces also needs a rabbet, and I'm coming up a 1/2 inch and over 3/8 of an inch. Now on this mitered frame, I've already cut my pieces to final length, and typically that's not what you already do. Typically you want to do that on your miter sled, but that's okay. And I'm just going to take my outside corner measurement and line it up with the kerf on my miter sled and cut all the parts in relation to that kerf, and it should be alright. And here's what the more traditional frame is going to look like. As you can see, I used some scrap lumber, so I've got a little bit of cleaning up to do. But I'm going to go ahead and glue it all together now and let this sit in this band clamp for a little while. And while it's sitting, I can work on the other one. And once you have it all together, you can tighten it up slightly. You don't want to tighten it up too much because it'll start to bow a little bit in places you really don't want it to bow. The second frame is going to be joined together with a halflap joint. It's very strong, very quick, and very easy to do. The way I'm cutting this is with my dado blade on the table saw. However, you could cut it with a single blade cut here and then a single blade cut there. So you don't necessarily have to have a dado blade in order to make a halflap joint. A little bit of glue on each piece and spreading it around, making sure we do get the shoulders of the joint. And with the glue spread on all the joints, we can simply put it all together relatively easy. And I like to clamp everything together like so, and then on each joint. Now I'm not putting a lot of clamping pressure on these directions here, but what I will do is flip this thing over, and now I've got access to put the clamps on the actual joint themselves. With frame number 2 and the clamps, we can now work on frame number 1 that's already been glued up. I've got a little bit of glue squeeze out here on top of my joints. Obviously this has got some overspray from a previous project. I've already cleaned up these outside corners with just a chisel, scraping off the glue squeeze out that I had just a little bit. And I didn't put any glue near the interior corners because I didn't want to worry about squeeze out, and I don't have any here. So I'm just going to take a palm sander and clean these top surfaces, and I like to use a piece of carpet pad below to kind of hold everything from sliding around. There's no real super awesome way to show this on camera, but to sand all these corners nice and smooth, I'm just using a piece of 220 grit random orbital paper and just kind of folding it in my fingers to get around these corners nice and neat the best I can. With all the corners cleaned up, I'm just doing the same thing with my 220 grit sandpaper on the profile itself. I'm still waiting for those half-lap joints to dry, so I might as well take advantage of the time and go ahead and stain this one. I'm just using some leftover Early American Minwax stain. And now I can take a fresh rag and wipe off all the excess. Taking the half-lap frame out of the clamps, and I just ran it through my table saw, just removing a very slight amount to clean up these outside edges nice and smooth. The inside edges, I don't particularly see any glue out that I need to be concerned with, or glue squeeze out that I need to be concerned with. The top joints are not exactly perfect, so I'm just going to sand them smooth real quick. The inside of this frame needs a rabbet that is going to accept the panel that sits in place. And to do so, I've just installed a 1/2 inch by 3/8 inch rabbeting bit, and I'm just going to straddle the bit and work my way around. And of course, because I used a round bit, I'm going to have to come back and square off these corners. I've taken the frame, it's all sanded up nice and smooth, and the rabbet is on this side facing this way. And I've clamped it to a piece of 2x stock that will rest flat up against the top of my fence. And I've tilted the blade to about 35 degrees, and this is going to give me a nice steep chamfer all the way around. So that worked out pretty well. Looking at the frame, that's what you're going to see up against the wall. It's going to have a shadow reveal all the way around the back of it. So I really like that angle. Turned out pretty good. And this is going to get painted, but if it wasn't, that would make for an interesting looking joint if you were to stain it. Last night I sprayed about 3 coats of lacquer on here and came back with some real fine gray finishing pad and just cleaned it up, took off all the little burrs, dust in the air. And what I'm left with is more of a satin finish, but it's really smooth, so I'm going to leave it. Now I need to fit the panels to go on the inside. And when I initially cut these, it was just rough measurements and just to get an idea of what size frame I needed to make. Now I need to figure out the actual size that I need this panel to be, keeping in mind that I am wrapping fabric around, so that's going to take up a little bit more space, and cut and fit both of these into place. This is the more traditional looking frame, and the more contemporary frame, I ended up going with red. I said I was going to do white, but when I went to reach for my white spray paint, I found some red, and one of the horses that's going to go, I think the horse right in the middle is red anyway, so it'll kind of make it look like it's matching the theme. So red for the more contemporary looking frame, and the traditional stained frame as well. So we get these panels cut and start stapling the material to it. To fit the material onto the plywood itself, I'm just setting it face up and trying to go for a symmetrical overhang on all sides. And then this frame should fit snug over that plywood. And if all goes well, I should have an equal symmetrical gap all the way across. Now I can gently pull it from the bottom side to get it exactly where I want it. Now this panel fits into the frame pretty securely, but just to hold it a little bit tighter, I'm going to put 4 staples on either side and straddle half onto this plywood backing and half into the frame itself. And the more contemporary frame is done in the same way. Just line everything up and see how it all fits together. We're just going to secure this all the same way we did the other one. Now I'm probably using more staples than what's necessary, but oh well. And just like the more traditional frame, the contemporary frame just stapled across in the back and sawtooth hanger, and that's it. Quick and easy, and hopefully she'll enjoy. And here they are done. Very easy to make. This was a fun little project that I did a little bit of experimenting with, and great learning experience. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. If you like what you see, like and subscribe, and you guys have a great day.